she held the baby out. She took the baby out of some box, and she picked it up and held it straight out in front of her. And the baby is just dangling there. And I say, no, no, no. Don't hold the baby like that. Cradle the baby in your arms. Listen, I've got to get there. And then she says, no, it's not allowed. You can't come here. My baby's dying, and I can't come there. Watch this. And I go, and I lay down on my bed. I pass out, and the next thing I know, I am there, wherever there is. Now, there were 3 of the insect beings there, plus some other women, a few of the grays, and a little hairy guy.
It's like a cave? This is the underground stuff?
Yeah, it's underground. And one of the insect beings comes over, and he's very upset with me. And he says, what are you doing here? And I said, my baby's dying. I want to see and touch my baby. And he just looks at me, and he says, no. And I don't know what to do. I just remember that I bent one knee, I bent the other knee, and I'm on my knees before him, and I begged him to let me see my baby. And everybody seemed to be a little surprised at what I had done, and then he changed his mind, and he said yes. So, anyway, he goes, and he lets me, I see the woman, she's holding the baby in the arms like I had shoulder, and then I reach over, and just as I touched the baby, I would say it was something like static electricity jumped from my hand to the baby. And I look at the insect being, and I say, whoa, did you see that? Let me do that again. And I reached over, and I touched the baby again. And suddenly, everybody, I sensed a great deal of excitement. The other 2 beings that were there, they were gone. And I look at the insect being looks at me, and he says, come with me. And we go into another room. And this room is filled with babies. They were like in little cubicles stacked on top of each other. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, whoa, whose babies are these? He points to me, and he says, they're yours. And I was there for one reason and one reason only, and that was to touch the babies.
You get the feeling that, so you're telling me this story is that this race, wherever they are, living underground, some alien species, needed your help to repopulate or to start a new hybrid species, or what? What's your guess? What's going on here?
All I know is that the human touch was very beneficial for the babies. And that's really all I can say. But they were hybrid babies. They were part human, and they were part of, well, alien, I guess you could say. And anyway, after I had touched the babies, the next morning when I woke up, I was absolutely drained. I couldn't move. I was so weak. And there was
I'll tell you what. Why don't you
Yes.
just hold there, David? We will continue the conversation, hear the rest of your story. I want to bring Farah Yerduzu back into the conversation as well. Stay with us. A lot of ground still to cover here on Coast to Coast AM. We're talking with David Huggins about his encounters with these strange beings, sexual encounters with these unknown entities in underground caverns that seem to be for the purpose of producing hybrid babies. And when we come back, we're going to bring in the author of this book, Love in an Alien Purgatory, Farah Yerduzu, to rejoin the conversation. Stay with us because we've got a lot still to cover, and then we'll be opening up the phone lines in a little bit here on Coast to Coast AM. Farah Yerduzu is the author of Love in an Alien Purgatory. Sorry to leave you on the sidelines there, Farah, for so long. I just, you listen to the basics of this tale, and as fantastic as they are, and maybe as hard to swallow for a lot of people as they are, the basic ingredients are not all that unfamiliar if you look back over the recorded history. I mean, people claiming to have sex with, call them demons or gods or aliens or whatever, right?
Yes, similar cases we we know that almost all ancient mythological beings were very much interested in the human woman. And this happened in Sumerian times. This happened in Babylonia. Again, this happened in my own native country, Turkey, in Hittite civilization, which was the biggest civilization in that time, almost 5,000 years ago. And gods and goddesses, beings, biological beings, they came from the sky, they came from the underground, they were in flesh and bone. They were biological beings, and they got married to human woman in order to start a hybrid generation, a new generation. And again, much later, in medieval times, in the dark ages of the religious pressure, many people were having encounters with demons. They were calling them demons, Satan, evil, devil. And the description, again, fits perfectly well to today's reptilian beings. And for some reason, reptilians have the similar physical aspects, just like the demons.
Well, I'm looking at the artwork in David's, David's artwork here in your book, and this crescent, this woman, alien being that he had this long-term relationship with, and she looks like, her face looks like a typical gray, except for she's got what would appear to be a wig on it, and I could see somebody in years gone by saying, well, that looks like a demon to me. I mean, calling it that, right?
Well, yes. Most of the times, these encounters were happening between the humans and a little bit scary-looking beings, ugly-looking beings. And today we call them reptilians. But in the past, as people didn't know anything about UFOs, anything about extraterrestrial beings, they were named, they were titled as demons, monsters, just like it happened in my own family.
Farah, writing this book and working with David and hearing this story, I'm wondering, do you have to sort of pinch yourself at some point? Because I have a pretty open mind about things, and I'm not saying whether I believe him or not. And I realize that, David, you've told me already it doesn't really matter. You're not trying to convince anyone, but I don't even know how to process this information. I don't even know what category to put it in. You know what I mean, Farah?
Supernatural category.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's that.
Yes, because we cannot measure, we cannot categorize similar cases. There are many. In the limits of our physical life, in the limits of our physical world, which is a kind of limited, we can only measure this life with our five senses. But as we know, there are 6 to 7 senses, and human being is only using the 5% of the brain. So what's happening in the rest of the brain? And also we have a spiritual side. We are not only a physical body and blood and physical organs. We are much more than this. And again, we are dealing with supernatural. Supernatural has many different categories, not only UFOs or not only alien extraterrestrial interactions. There are many. So, yes, first of all, we need to be very open-minded. And the other thing is we need to be well-informed. We need to get our information from the right sources. Because in this field, as we know, not everything is true, or not everything is expressed in the right way.
Oh, can I get an amen on that one? That's for sure. David, let me ask you this. You did develop a relationship. There was communication with this woman and with other beings. Were you ever able to ask them, what are you doing this for? What's going on? Can you tell me a little bit more? I know that, in the history of ufology and alleged abductions and alien encounters, that these visitors, ETs, whatever they are, have often done editorials, take care of your planet and be good to each other and don't blow it up with nuclear weapons, that sort of thing. You never got any of that kind of stuff from them, did you?
No, I never did. The only time that ever happened was when I was looking at the planet with this being, and he says, it's a beautiful planet, you should take care of it, and that was it. As for the children, I kind of think, well, there is a couple of paintings that I did, and it goes like this. I was with these beings at the time when they were going to leave me alone for a while, and I was with one of the Greys, and we're in what I can only call a laboratory, and he takes out what I can only call a packaged alien. It was like in a plastic bag, and he hands it to me. And I'm holding it in my hands. And as I'm holding it in my hands, it becomes animated. The eyes open, the mouths open, and the packaged alien, if you will, started tapping his fingers on the inside of the plastic bag. Actually, I get kind of scared at that, and I quickly hand it back to him. Now, what's interesting is that last year I was in an art show, and the painting, which I called the packaged alien, got damaged. And I'm in my studio, and I'm retouching it. And as I am retouching it, I think to myself, I wonder if they're still using these bodies. Well, anyway, I finished fixing the damaged parts of the painting, and later that night I went to bed, and I am with them. There are about maybe 4 or 5, I would say, young people, say maybe in their 20s. And one of them comes over to me and he looks at me and says, David, we have new bodies now. That's all he said. But I remembered it the next morning, and what I was thinking, well, if you have new bodies now, what happened to the old ones?
Well, back to my original question there, David. Were you able to ever ask them about this, or does this? You were in a state where you're not being the inquisitor. It just doesn't occur to you to ask them questions, or were you able to ask them things like, "What's the deal with this whole plan here?"
Actually, no. It was like I was there for certain functions to perform certain things, like touching the babies or whatever. But I think their race has reached a certain point where it is atrophied, and they need new genetic material, something of that order. But
and if you had to guess where they live, is it literally underground, or is it somewhere else, some other dimension, some other reality?
It's hard for me. I am leaning toward interdimensional. All right? But I'm not sure. I mean, if you want to say it's interplanetary, fine. Intergalactic, fine. Interdimensional, fine. Or even inter-Earth. But I just don't know where they're from.
When did it stop? When did the sort of the sexual encounter part of it stop?
1975.
Were you able to tell your wife about this stuff at some point? I guess you have, now that you're on the radio talking about it.
Rough. It was rough. It was rough. I don't want to hear this, she would say. I don't.